mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make.
He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most favorite monsters. I am your mistress of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Bye.
Dan, we're not alone. Once again.
There's a strange person there.
Is that right in over there?
Shh, can hear you.
We are joined by the marvelous returning guest of Monsters of North. You may remember him from such episodes as the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, or Phantom of the Opera. We have Graham.
Hello, I'm here. I'm back. Hello.
I can't call you your name that's from Trek because I can't pronounce it properly.
What, Science Officer Sonoys?
Yeah.
I realised that actually I'm glad that Goodwill is always the one pronouncing it because I actually struggle. It's a lot of S's. Science Officer Sonoys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for a dyslexic, it's like a lot of letters. So it's like
I'm
it's
just
low.
cheating at Scrabble with that name, to be fair. I'm trying to get a Y in. I'm trying to get a Z in. Yeah. But no, thanks for having me. Viewers, I basically begged Sammy for this. I was like, please let me be on Event Horizon. I'm so excited. I love this movie.
Just came out of nowhere and I was like, yeah, okay. So yes, Graham has given away the episode, even though we gave it away last week. It's Event Horizon. Can't say that in a quite nice voice, can you? Given the movie. Event Horizon. So, I'll do the disclaimer and then we'll crack on into it. So, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Discord, the Facebook pages, or the comment section where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism.
Don't be a dick.
There you go. Short and sweet version. Have you noticed that I do time the ending to Dan's hand signals?
I love it. I love that you've just got the whole thing together.
Yeah, got all down, man. I even did it when we had a really, really big guest on and I could feel me insides burning as I was doing it.
But she didn't get what I said. Still to this, she kicks herself for not getting what I said. I quoted Sean. This is relevant because Sean Pertwee's in the movie. I quoted Sean Pertwee instead of saying my name. I'm in the car seat, and she just looked really blank at me when I said it.
Dan, we've got a guest on.
Don't be bringing up in your cars here. Don't be bringing that into things.
It wasn't until when we were watching it along, I was like, oh, shit. No, and I had to bring it up the following week. It will haunt me. It will actually haunt me.
We all do things and say stuffs, and there'll be a time for me to humiliate myself horrifically and replace words that everybody knows with random words that don't exist. There'll be time. There will be time.
We will be challenged by the English language again. Believe you me, it will happen. So, Event Horizon, the 1997 science fiction horror directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, starring Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, Kathleen Quinlan, and Jolie Richardson. An infinite evil, infinite space, infinite terror. Monsters of North brings you Event Horizon.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. Right, I actually got that intro. I wrote it before I started watching and reading. Now, bear in mind, I fucking adore this film, but I haven't seen it for a really, really long time. Totally fucking forgot that Sean Pertwee was in it, and that Jason Isaacs was in it, and I was like, I've already wrote it out. No, I'm not adding their names in there.
It's really like bizarre, like what a cast it has. Like, you know, when you're sitting there being like,
Yeah.
hang on, is this before a lot of them got their big breaks and stuff? Like Isaac's being in it is amazing. Like, you know, I mean, I can't actually tell you what accent he has in it because it seems to change every scene, but it's like, I'm just hearing it wrong.
But could anyone actually understand what Jason? Because I felt at one point I'm going to have to put subtitles on. I genuinely couldn't understand what he was saying.
He has bits where it sounds like his native accent, like which is like a northern one, or sometimes it was Irish, and sometimes it was like I don't know, nearly Cornish or something. And I was just like, I don't know what you're saying a lot of the time, and it was
is
just
this
a
how
weird
we
one.
sound to people, Graham?
I think so.
Oh.
This is like where we have whenever on the Girl podcast, whenever we like have guests on who are American, they like struggle to understand like the Sunderland Newcastle
They really
accent.
do. Yeah.
And you know, you're just like, well, we know what they're saying, but then it's a weird thing, like something that should be familiar to us, and we're just like, no idea what you're saying, mate.
I think it's one of those things with Jason Isaacs, though. You look at him, and he's most known now as obviously Lucius Malfoy, no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah.
So they're used to this very Shakespearean, over the top, over pronunciation, very, very British accent. But so when you hear him with his normal dialect, he's very mumbly.
Yeah.
He's not very clear and concise in general when he talks, because I watched the behind the scenes and he was very much like, and I couldn't distinguish an accent. There was something there, but I couldn't tell you what it was. And it seems like he was saying his brother's a doctor, so he was using his brother as a sort of like a inspiration for this guy. And I was like, Jesus, your brother must be crazy.
Yeah, your brother must be really crazy. It's funny that you mentioned the cast, because the cast is predominantly English.
Yes.
And it's all down to where it was recorded, which was Pinewood Studios, which all I kept thinking of while watching it was, Jesus Christ, the sets for this, because they are fucking amazing detail to everything. And I was like, oh, that is good. Now when I learned it was Pinewood, and I was like, oh, that's probably why. That is probably
20 minutes from there. I grew up 20 minutes from Pinewood.
Wow.
I used to go past it every day for college.
Oh. Lirian! I belong here!
That's my home! I need to be with my people.
It's so sad that the audio people aren't going to see Dan's expression, because that was fucking genius.
I was licking the window to get in. I was like, please let me in. It's me.
Which is the exact opposite tactic for actually letting them in. You know,
I generally didn't think we'd be starting this when me nearly went myself. If I may take up just 2 minutes of your time to give you the opening of this movie, because the opening kind of sets everything up and made me very much laugh at some of the dates. So 2015, permanent colony established on the moon. Don't think we're anywhere near that. And it's 2024.
He's a bit optimistic. He was like, okay, I give it 10 years until we are on the moon. And you're like going, okay.
Permanent colony on the moon, by the way. 2032, commercial mining begins on Mars. And then
I would say we're probably far off that as it stands. Possible. Not commercial, but something.
Something, yeah. But in 2040... deep space vessel Event Horizon sent to explore, I can't read my own writing, explore boundaries in the solar system, disappears beyond Neptune, the worst space disaster on record. 23rd of January of the same year, Captain John Kilpatch makes his final log on board the Event Horizon. And then in 2046, the lost I can't read my own writing. The lost ship, of Event Horizon is discovered in low orbit, in brackets, Neptune. And in 2047, the starship Lewis and Clark set to investigate the salvage the lost starship Event Horizon. They discover bad things. It genuinely says at the beginning of the film.
Does it have ellipsis at the end? Does it have ...
That did some of the bad things.
Yeah, there we go.
So that's the opening of the movie, and it kind of sets up where we're at. But there is a few things I want to go through before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of the movie, as in like kind of anything that we know about it, because I feel like that's been working for us, Dan.
You go for it. You.
Go on, fill your boots.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Well, because the first bit of information that I found was the director. Didn't know the name, didn't recognize the name,
Really?
and then he realized he did Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I have to ask this question: did Mortal Kombat do well?
In America.
Right.
Here. In
That
America.
explains so much.
Mortal Kombat did better than it was expected to do, which
Right.
was quite a lot. You know, as in, like, it wasn't like a groundbreaking movie, but everyone thought it was going to be absolute garbage, and then it actually made its money, and you're like, oh, okay, fair cop. You know, it was, I think. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, Paul W.S. Anderson had a real run of shite, but then he was really lucky because he ended up, after he did Mortal Kombat, and it did as well as it did, he then got the option. He was getting things sent to him constantly from Hollywood, and he got the option to pick. So this is how he then did this, and then became Mr. Milla Jovovich, because obviously he did all the Resident Evil movies, and he's Milla Jovovich's husband now. They got married, they've got kids together.
Didn't know that. I genuinely didn't recognize the name at all.
Yeah, because it only had Paul Anderson for Event Horizon, yet he changed it to W.S. Anderson when he started doing all the Resident Evil movies. So
it's because there's another director called Paul Anderson, I think. The problem is, it's horrible to say, but I class this as Paul W.S. Anderson's only good movie.
Correct.
Because, the Resident Evil movies are absolute garbage. Hot garbage.
I like the first
and
one.
Mortal Kombat was...
Yeah, I like the first one.
Mortal Kombat was a film.
It was,
So
it was out there. Well, it was enough for him to be given the option of X-Men.
Yes.
He was offered X-Men, and this is what got me thinking, like, did Mortal Kombat do as well for him to get that as an option? And I was like, because in my head, you know, when you say Mortal Kombat, not a lot of people respond as in, fuck me, that was one of the best movies ever made. So terrible.
I think it was like because no one had done a good game adaptation at that point. It was the closest we had to a good one. But still,
what do you mean? Mario Brothers was amazing.
But the problem with Mario Brothers is it wasn't actually an adaptation of the video game Mario Brothers. It was an adaptation of one of the cast's LSD trip or something. You know, I don't know. It was. I genuinely don't know what the aim was.
I did a whole review for it on Nerdy Up North channel, so if you want to go and see my hot take on it, because I quite enjoyed it. But the initial cut of this movie was 130 minutes.
Yes.
Cut right the way down because of how highly violent it was. And I just want to, while I have it in front of me, go through the scenes that was deleted. I have lost my space now. Oh my god. Fuck my life. Oh no, okay. So the orgy scene.
Yeah.
That was oh my god, I had it all in front of us and I've gone and lost it. I found it again. Right. So this is because I did not want to write any of this down. This is why it's here for. Because I was like, fuck, I am not writing all of this. So the meeting scene between Weir and some people in charge of the mission where they talked about Event Horizon. Dialogue from this deleted scene was included in the theatrical trailer. So that part was cut out. More backstory on Justin and Cooper. It was explained that Justin was always been fascinated by Event Horizon, providing a much stronger explanation for why he enters the black hole when he is finally on board. Cooper's greatest fear was losing someone close to him, which is represented in the film by the unfortunate accident that claims Justin. Deleted backstory that hints to a previous romance between Stark and Miller, which totally got by the way at the end. The we held our face after they came out. I was like, get that.
Yeah.
Miller finds a ripped out tooth floating around the event horizon. I mean, that would freak me out. I don't do teeth. So more scenes explaining what exactly Gateway to Hell / Black Hole is. Longer version of the scene where Peter hallucinates her son with his legs all mangled, with maggots all over them. Anderson claimed that the maggot shot was so particularly sickening that it took people too far out of the movie to be effective. After Justin almost died and is inside the water tank, Wheater has a hallucination where Justin turns into his wife Claire, who comes out and looks at him. The scene was included in the first 2 test screening versions of the movie, but it didn't make it into the final cut. The scene where Wheater remembers his wife Claire committing suicide was originally longer and bloodier. And the infamous bloody orgy scene. The video was also much longer, parts of which are still in the scene, like the one of the crew members sticking his fingers deep into one's eyes, and a female crew member sodomizing a male crew member with an iron pipe. Even more violent in the original version of the scene.
It's not for me to shame.
No, I know. I'm not. We're not here to king shame anybody. There was also a lot more extended shots of the Event Horizon crew naked and covered in blood, having violent sex and raping and eating each other. A more graphic version of the scene where a crewman pulls out his own intestines out of his mouth. Do I really need to go on? Because it's a lot, but you get the point.
Hell of a ability.
Yeah,
like not all heroes wear capes, I think. But
so I feel that alone.
The funniest thing that I noticed is in the credits at the end, there is someone whose specific job is Hell Sequence Editor, where they've got this whole section in the credits for the Hell Sequence. And I just love the idea that they just went, okay, guys, what we're going to do is we're just going to basically have a bit of a sort of blood orgy type thing. And you're going to be putting your fingers in your eyes and you're going to be like pulling your intestines out through your mouth and stuff. And just the idea of these actors just having a day of absolute chaos in front of the camera. Just like I'd just be like, that's your job for this movie. There you go. You are a woman who sodomizes guy with pipe.
Imagine having that on your CV.
But I think that the most horrible thing though is this is something that people have been calling for an extended version of the film to come out, and it's all just lost. All of the stuff that you've mentioned there, they have just said doesn't exist anywhere. They don't have the reels. They don't have anything. They've looked for them, like, because you kind of wonder if it could be like a Nightbreed thing, like, because remember what happened with the Clive Barker film Nightbreed, where they basically just found the reels in someone's house, like one of the staff members' house, and they're just like, let's just put this back together and make like the intended cut of the film, which is crazy. But like we always hope that that'll happen with Event Horizon, that we'll get to see that horrible sequence in full,
Well, they found one of the reels in Transylvania in a salt mine.
What?
You can't make this shit up.
No, they did.
Damn you, Every.
Paul Anderson said. He said I heard that there was a rumor it was there. We went, we got it. We thought to ourselves, great, we've got it, and it was so degraded. Whatever the scene was, you couldn't see what it was, so they had to throw it away and destroy it. Oh. So, for all we know, there are other cuts, like you say, but they're out there. They could be in someone's basement, some's loft.
Are they just split to the corners of the earth like the Dragon Balls or something? Like, like how does that happen?
They were used as threats.
Is it when they finished the film? Did Paul Anderson did they gravitate into the air and then split out and shoot out to the other corners of the earth? Well,
my morbid brain went to what they did with Evita Peron's body when she died. They separated it all off and sent it to other places around the world as kind of like a threat warning. Maybe that's what they did with the movie. Like, if you try, we will do this.
Yes. Purely to stop us seeing like a woman sodomizing someone with a pipe.
Oh, I don't.
It's political correctness gone mad.
don't get us wrong, I wouldn't be bothered about it having a bit more fleshed out to it, but I don't feel like I need to see that scene any more than what we did. The effectiveness was because of how short it was.
Yeah.
And it was
I
like
do-
flash moments.
But I do think that there should, if there was the full director's cut available, I'd be very intrigued to see how it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like there are elements, and he even says this, he feels like there are massive elements missing from the relationships of the people on the Lewis and Clark, because you never find out that Miller and Jodie Richardson and Morpheus are used to go out. You never find these things out. But like when you research it, you then find it out because it was in a lost scene, and then you say that scene at the end where he's holding her face so tenderly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I even paid attention to, but as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be really intrigued to find out what the actual, because I know there's a scene in there that was supposed to be absolutely. There's I don't want to go into it too much because I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but DJ's death. It was supposed to be horrific. He was supposed to talk and everything to Morpheus, and it was. Well, considering Fishburne wasn't Morpheus for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So
he's technically Miller still.
Yeah.
You say that about DJ's death, and yes, we will get into it obviously when we're talking about the movie. This parts of this movie, especially the orb itself, is highly inspired by Hellraiser.
Yeah.
The intricacy of it and how it's all put together is kind of like the box within Hellraiser, and that's where he kind of took his inspiration from.
Well, Clive Barker worked on pre-production.
Yes.
He worked on pre-production, and he said to Paul, what is your end game? What do you want? You know, he said, I want the R rating, I want the blood, I want the
gore.
the overly sexual connotations, I want all that. But originally the core wasn't going to look like that. It was just going to be a big black blob, but they based it on the Bible's description of an angel. So the 3 rings, it's supposed to be like the Bible's version of what an angel really looks like without the eyes.
Like 50 wings and 30 eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this sounds believable.
And
Let's
there's
base
your
my life
angel.
around it.
There's your angel. Some of the actual set, I might be taking this completely wrong because it was just something I read last night, and it kind of made us think perfect that Graham's on, because it kind of does link to Star Trek. There is certain sections of it that were either shot on the same set as Star Trek, or it has the same set as Star Trek. I can't remember which one now. I really wish I took more notice of that article.
I genuinely don't. I haven't heard anything about this, to be fair, because obviously most Star Trek is shot in, Paramount Studios in America. Mm-hmm. However, it could have been one of the films, because I think with the films they basically went for, hey, let's shoot them in obscure places. Like, for instance, probably. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, but I genuinely don't know about this. But this is the great thing that we had in cinema, where you just got loads of reused sets, where they just went, oh yeah, we've got these. Like in Star Trek Next Generation, there's a really fun thing where they just had all these random props from another sci-fi show that was happening at the same studio, and they're like, yeah, let's just use this. And so it appears in like multiple like shows, this one prop,
I'm now starting to feel like I may have made this up. Like,
yeah, I can't see how it's possible, because I think all Trek is done like that, but it's definite. Any UK sort of thing, like, was V shot in the UK?
Oh, I have no idea. I didn't even know V existed until I met my husband.
I think some of it, I want to say it was filmed in like some random state in the US. Off the top of my head, I could be completely wrong, but
I found it.
Oh,
I found it.
She's found it.
This was the studio that made Star Trek. It was the studio.
Paramount.
It was So hang on. He stated that when he the rough edit, they were shocked, and some of them even fainted. This was the studio that made Star Trek, so I think they kind of thought it was going to be Star Trek. Ah, right, okay, that's where it is. But it was a bit more violent. They were actually wrong, right? So that was the Star Trek reference. It was the studio.
Yeah, I've got another list of a few more deleted shots that never saw the light of day. A female crew member who had her mouth held open by clamps while a crazed guy performed amateur dentistry by drilling screws into her teeth.
No.
Another person has their legs smashed apart by steel bars and crawls away, leaving parts of them behind.
No.
While another one had her breasts torn off.
Oh no!
Also includes, are you ready, Sam? Put your fingers in your ears. Cannibalism. There's a lot of cannibalism in it.
I to be fair, I love that they went so hard.
Yeah,
for this
so glad
one
you finished
scene.
that sentence.
But it's very much the idea of, I think they're right, that it would have taken away from the movie if they'd had all of that. If it had lasted for much longer than it does.
Yeah.
But I still want to see it all. I still want to be like, what the hell was your day doing this? You know.
I do now because we're so far down the line, but I don't think that it would have had the same effect. This would have been a completely different movie. This would have been like, banned movie, not seen it for years. It would have had a completely different effect on us, especially with the cannibalism part. I don't think I can hack that.
Why?
What? Oh, why? We've already had this conversation. I can't.
Delicious, itchy, tasty.
Don't.
Flaky scalp. Did you know there was a Star Wars Easter egg in the opening sequence?
No.
Well, the opening sequence where you see Sam Neill and that bit where it's panning out, it cost a third of the budget, didn't it, to film that sequence? The budget was 60 million. So that cost in 1997 20 million to shoot that sequence. And in the model, when it's turning around and you see it, there is an X-wing attached to the model.
I read that.
Really?
Yeah. They put it in as a little Easter egg, but it doesn't turn quick enough, but your eye doesn't go straight to it because it's not in the immediate.
Yeah.
So it's on the peripheral. But yeah, apparently there is an X-wing, so I feel like I need to go back and watch it just to go,
I want to see that, but I don't particularly want to watch that scene again because I know that they put a lot of money into it, but that made me really unsettled. Like I felt a bit sick when I was watching it. I know, and I was thinking, have they done something like in order for me to feel this way? Like what? I don't get the science behind this, but I don't feel good right now. Like I need to make sure I'm grounded on the where I was sitting.
Well, I think that one of the things we have to mention about this movie is how good the cinematography is. Like, it's just the idea of how well it's shot, like how well, like we're saying, the eye is led to or away from certain things. Yeah. And like with that shot there, where we have this big pan out and then he's upside down, and it's this whole thing of basically like making you feel ill at ease on this, on this spaceship. And it's done beautifully. Like, like where we get the... is it Peters? The scene where she's like in the med bay or whatever, and she's hearing things, and she's basically like sort of she's looking around, and it feels like, it feels creepy. It's like the atmosphere is just so perfect throughout this whole thing.
I've never in a long time shouted at his television and went, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why?" At that woman.
Wait, there's actually bits though where I'm just like, I'm glad that people are reacting slightly realistically, because I think doesn't she like Peters has a bit where she's just like, I'm not going back to med bay, and you just like, and I kind of like that she's just like, no, I'm not doing this.
Then she goes and does what she does, and just really annoyed. I did shout. I was like, why?
But this is the thing, because we see, and I'm just very confused by the whole thing, because it's basically her going, her going like, oh well, my son is disabled, but then she sees her son disabled, and then she sees her son running around, and she's like, that's not strange at all. He's just running around in space, and it feels like it's missing a scene or something, or like I kind of feel like maybe the child should be dead, but like it doesn't say.
Yeah.
It basically says the opposite. It basically starts the film with her going, "I'm going to see him soon." It's like, why would he be here? Why would he be longing for him? Like in this,
I've always gone with the notion that her kid was dead and she was lying. That's always what my brain has thought about her.
that makes sense. But then it has the video where she's like, "Oh, I'm looking after him next month," and then, or maybe she had two sons. One of them's disabled. The other one died. It doesn't ever say. Like
No, it's not.
it
It's
feels
not
like a
fleshed
missed
out.
thing.
It does, because it would make that decision making at the end. I know we jumped right to the end there, but it would make the decision making of that more sensical than me going, "What the fuck is the matter with you?" There's no psychotic break in her. She is very like straightforward throughout the whole thing. Like you said, she wouldn't go back to where she knew where shit was happening, but yet she was willing to do that. Like not that long later, there's nothing there to signal that, you know, this is played. This ship is getting into her head so much that that's the decision she's going to go with.
But for how good this film is, there's still elements of slasher in it. There's still elements of that whole, the crew members are there to die, and it kind of has, this is their time to die, so they're going to do the silly things in order for that to happen. And it's a shame because it's so good, but it does kind of go, well, they have to die because that's the kind of film we're in.
Yeah.
Well, there is another little Easter egg in that opening shot. You know, when he opens the blind just as it starts to twist, he opens the blind. The noise that the blind makes is from Doom, the computer game. They took a sample of the gun being shot. From, you know, you got first person, and there's a noise that the gun makes when it's shot, and Paul took that sample and used it for the blind going up. So he hid that in there really, really well, which I thought was really cool.
Well, it's one of the things I want to mention. I'm probably going to mention later, and it's this idea of like this has influenced so much stuff. Like this is one of those films where I would go, did you realize when you were making this, like, what effect it would have upon like media and like video games and stuff? So it's kind of fun that it's basically this, you know, that Paul W.S. Anderson was influenced by the game Doom, and then the game series Doom was influenced by this in turn. It's just
full circle.
It's full circle, and it's wonderful. But anyway, I'll talk about that later, hopefully.
In a bit. I do like the fact that when this was shown to Mr. Anderson's very good friend Kurt Russell, and he watched it in its entirety and just said, "You will not be remembered for this movie right now, but in 10 years' time, they will get it." And left it at that.
That's true, though.
Yeah, he was like, this will not do you well now. Give it 10 years and they will get it.
Because I think he was talking off the back of the Thing for that, because the Thing at the time was the same thing. It just didn't, it hit, but it didn't hit as well as it does now. So it's that test of time thing, and Kurt Russell being the king of test of time movies.
Yeah.
He would know. I love that. When I was reading it last night, I was like, oh, and he was right. I feel like I want to jump into the movie. I just want to talk about the movie now, because I'm itching to talk about some things and get them off my chest and like just get them on my head, to be honest with you, especially stuff to do with eyes.
There's an obsession with things to do with eyes. We have three people, don't we, losing their eyes in this movie.
Honestly, my feet have gone really hot just thinking about the stuff we're going to have to talk about in a minute. Like, it's
why is it your feet? What have I missed something?
I don't know. Just anytime I feel queasy.
Rain?
It's every time I feel queasy, my feet go really hot. And all I want to do is like curl my toes inside. I just don't want my feet anymore. I don't want my feet anymore. Honestly, what is wrong with me and the way I speak? The opening of this movie is as we've just been talking about, the meeting Sam Neill. Oh, actually, it's the whole thing, isn't it? The 2015 and
that's the opening credits type thing.
I'm just going to tell you, I actually wrote that from the screen. Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. Hence the reason why I can't understand my own writing, because I was like going really fast. And then you get to meet Sir Sam Neill, in his little bunk, having a lovely little dream about his missus.
I hope she's fine.
I really hope she's okay.
Scratch. She'll be okay.
Just a scratch, please stop. And we were instantly thrown into the crew of the Lewis and Clark. Instantly, as soon as the door opens and Dr. Weir walks out, you are instantly with that crew.
And I think the interesting thing about this is that this is, maybe like give me some more examples, but it's the fact of the movie twists, or spoilers, like twists the protagonist. Because it starts off with Sam Neill's character, Dr. Weir, being the protagonist. He is the everyman that we're introduced to, where it's going, hey, he's on this spaceship. Why is he doing this? Like, oh, everyone's being mean to him. Why this other crew are kind of rejecting him and whatnot. And then over the course of the film, he becomes the villain. And it switches to Miller being the protagonist. And it's really interesting because I can't name that many films where we have that kind of switcheroo. And it happens so naturally in this. But yeah, and it's the fact that everyone is so hostile to Sam Neill's character. And it's a bit of a shame because basically they're like, why the hell is this guy here? And they're just treating him like dirt and like sort of going, oh, well, just shut up, get in the cryo tube. We'll sort all of this out. Oh, you can't explain anything. Don't talk to me, kind of thing. And it's very weird because it feels like we're missing a backstory. And, we're missing some exposition on why they're dickheads. And we get it later on, but it feels like we should have had the fact that, more stuff about, oh, they were meant to be on holiday and they got dragged into this mission. No one's told them what the mission is, but they're having to do it as a priority.
That was about it. That was all that was said by Miller when they were sitting around the table after they'd come out of the cryo tubes. He basically said, we got called back to go with you on some orders to find this, and we didn't know what it was and still don't know what it is. And that's when they get it out of him about it being Event Horizon. But that is the only that is a fragment of exposition.
Yeah.
Again, it feels like you were missing that scene. I think that they must have cut something that had a bit more to it.
It felt like it needed to happen before the freezing. It felt like it needed a kind of, hey, we've been dragged out of this. Can you talk about it? And Sam Neill being like, no, not until we're there kind of thing. It's all classified or something. That would have made it feel better. But yeah.
Sorry, there's a commotion going on behind, and I've got two cats just ran in who are absolutely terrified. I feel Anthony's moving his cooling thing to another room. Makes he looks absolutely terrified. I trust Miller instantly, though. The minute we're in his presence, the minute with Lawrence Fishburne, I trust his instincts and the way he's treating Dr. Weir straight away.
Really?
I am because I don't know. There's something about Lawrence Fishburne and the way that he commands the screen that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm with you. Whatever's happening right now, I am with you.
I would have said it was the opposite, yeah, because for me it felt like you were saying, Graham, you've got the protagonist and the villain, and I thought, the first time I watched it, I thought Lawrence Fishburne was going to be the villain because the first movie that I saw him in, he was Ike Turner.
Fuck yeah!
So for me, I only had him as a bad guy, in my head. So I was just like, oh, you're just going to go all Ike on this screen, aren't you? That's what it was in my head. I was just looking at him going, oh, he's that bad man. So, we're talking pre-Matrix here. So, you go, oh, it's the bad man. So in my head, I thought he was going to be the villain. Sam Neill was going to be the good guy. And like you say, it turns on a dime. But there is the pinpoint where you see it happen is where they pull up to the ship, and I know I'm skipping a bit and we'll go back, but they pull up to the ship and you see Sam Neill start to change in that moment where he's like, I need to get onto that ship.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? And his whole manner changes and everything. So that's when I think it switched there. But
yeah. Well, you mentioned
it's almost like the ship is calling him kind of thing.
Oh yeah, the closer he gets to it.
Yeah, because it's all framed in this professional way where he's like, look, this is the biggest failure of my career. I spent all this time doing all of this, and I need to know, it's a professional need to know what went wrong. And yet, like, it becomes a sort of unhealthy obsession,
Oh,
like
huh.
at that moment there, where you're like, actually, this isn't just science. This is something is making you come towards this ship. Like, well, that was a bad phrasing.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I just want to go back a sec when you were talking about Ike Turner. Ike, when you were talking about Lawrence Fishburne playing Ike Turner, and that's your first. Mine is Boys in the Hood, and he is the loving, caring dad in that, and everything he says is just pearls of wisdom. So when I see Lawrence Fishburne on the screen for the first time in this, I'm like, I fully trust you. Whatever you're saying, I'm trusting you. And I think the way he was with his crew. Like, I know we're talking about the fact that things aren't kind of like fleshed out, but there is little moments where he's like with Peters, and he's like, I'm really sorry, I did try and get, swapped out with someone else so you could spend time with your son. And it kind of just gives us the impression that this is his family, like this is his family, and he's like his unit and he cares about them. So I'm like, if he thinks that something is going to hurt his family, he is gonna, and that's where my trust stays with him. And like, Sam Neill.
I think it's totally right. Like, it's exactly that. It's the fact of they are really tight as a crew. Like, I'd probably say more than the things that influence this, like Alien.
Yeah.
'Cause obviously in Alien, there's a lot of disparity between the crew. There's a lot of, this person doesn't get on with this person doesn't do that. This is a really tight crew, and that's why Sam Neill feels like the outsider. But as we see, he's being very standoffish about Sam Neill. Sorry, Dr. Weir, I'm going to use his name. See, I'm getting really confused because it's fucking Sam Neill. I'm sorry, but it's this idea of just going, I know you're playing your character, but you're Sam Neill. Like 2 years before this, he was in The Mouth of Madness, which is one of the greatest Lovecraft films ever made, but which was also not a massive success at the time. But but I feel like the relationships between the crew are really good and really solid in this, but it feels like it was missing more scenes with them. Like, so their interactions are believable, but it feels like we could have done with a scene showing this person talking to this person, showing this person doing this. But editing,
And I do get it. It's just what we got still kind of, it was more than enough to kind of like feel it out yourself to know where you stood with these people. I'm gonna save this rant for later on. This is something for later. Generally didn't know that Sean Pertwee was in this movie until he came on, and I was like, right, this is it. This is just brilliant. Like I say, like I said earlier, I used to watch this all the fucking time, like all the time. This was like my go-to-sleep movie, and then just stopped instantly and hadn't seen it for so many years. And it's something that's kind of like, I've always said, oh yeah, Event Horizon is one of my favorites. But if someone was to say, tell me what, I'll be like, Memory. It's really shit. There's a reason people call me Dory.
I could literally tell you everything about this film because it's such a this and Silence of the Lambs are probably my go-to. Let's watch them again. Let's put something that we know on. Well, maybe John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness as well. But it's but the bizarre thing though is what is it? I'm the opposite. I saw the credits come up and Sean Pertwee came up and I was like, what, Doctor Who? Like, I don't remember him being in this film. And, and then being like, oh, that's Sean Pertwee. And, and then feeling really guilty because they're both amazing. But I genuinely was like, I don't remember him being in this movie at all. And then, like, you see it and you're like, where is he? Does he play, like, the old captain or something? Or
you're just waiting for him the whole entire film and it's like, is he in the orgy scene?
Hold on a minute. Oh, it's Smithy. Oh, it's the guy from Dog Soldiers. And it's that whole thing,
Well, yeah. So once we've met the crew, we then figure out what it is we are there for.
Yes, the paper thingy.
Did anyone else, because of Big Bang Theory, knew exactly what he was talking about?
Yes.
Or was it just me?
Well, this is a bizarre thing where I knew, not at the time, but when I was rewatching this, I knew this. because the hilarious thing is I can bring everything into this. Maybe not Star Trek, but the writer of this movie basically said that the way that the Dimension Gate works and the way the plot of the film is based upon Warhammer. So it's based upon Warhammer 40,000.
Yes. Yes.
And the way that the warp works in like Warhammer is basically like this, where they fold space, travel through this other dimension through 2 points. So it was weird kind of going, I know that from Warhammer lore that's how that works, but it's weird seeing it in a film and then going, oh, and that's actual real theoretical physics. I love how I'm saying real theoretical physics, as in it is really something that someone thought about.
Yeah.
You know?
It really happened.
But it's just really fascinating, the idea of like this film is like ties so many things together where you just go, okay, so it's this guy wrote it because he was a Warhammer fan. It was based upon, and then the design team based loads of it upon Hellraiser, and then we based loads of it on this, and then we've got elements of Star Wars, and it's like a melting pot of all of these influences, and yet this itself becomes inspiration for loads of other things. It's cinema at its best, I think.
Yeah, because the 40K was supposed to be a prequel for 40K. But when you look into the lore, it has been disproved because this Event Horizon took place in the M3, but the warp wasn't invented till M18, M20. So in Warhammer world speak and periods of time. So
you two will understand each other.
Technically, it's 15,000 years before the warp was invented. But the fan theory was that something traveled back in time, crashed, and started the whole thing up in the M3 to then make it canon.
But this is the thing. I mean, it's because the warp in Warhammer isn't like a tool; it's basically a place. So it's basically like the dimension beyond our dimension, which is basically where there's nothing material at all, but it's basically a hell dimension.
Yeah.
Where it's ruled over by the chaos gods, and basically they went, hey, we can travel through space if we just take a shortcut through this thing where nothing is physical, and therefore we can bend space and move to 2 points. And then obviously they go, that's really dangerous because the things behind there will see us and then come through. And it's fascinating. So but it's not really set in Warhammer lore, but obviously the writer went, I want to write something using this lore that I love, and I'll fit it in my head canon somewhere. But like Dan's saying, it doesn't actually fit.
Yeah, I mean, they reckon that he based the Event Horizon on a Mars class battlecruiser.
Yes.
And in Warhammer, they're 5 kilometers long. In Warhammer, those battlecruisers.
Bloody hell, I didn't know that.
5 kilometers long, the Mars battlecruisers.
The only time I've seen them is there's an old Warhammer game called Battlefield Gothic, where they finally sort of made little models of the ships, and none of them are accurate to what anything should be. So you literally just have this tiny ship here, and then you have this other one, which is like, it's like a Lego Star Destroyer, where you just go, well, here's my Lego TIE Fighter, here's my Lego Star Destroyer. They are not realistically sized against each other. But yeah. But no, I didn't realize they were meant to be 5 miles long. But the thing with Warhammer lore, though, is it's always evolving. People will say that it is the greatest, most well-considered thing in the entire world. It is not. They change their mind all the time. They literally just be like, here's a thing that retcons loads of stuff before then. Yeah. But, but they like to tie it together. But
I did know the Warhammer reference / information. I just didn't want to bring it up because I didn't understand it.
Well,
so I was really hoping somebody else would have. I was really hoping somebody else would. But when I was again reading that last night, I was like, oh, Graham.
It's just fascinating. Like I say, the amount of sci-fi influences in this film is just fantastic.
Rob's converting I bought him because Rob bought me, we got engaged, he bought me a ring. He said, so what do I get? So I bought him a Warlord Titan.
Bloody hell.
Gave him present. Yeah, so
wow.
He's converting it to Nurgle.
Yeah.
And he has gone all out. I mean, he's kit bashing it to the gods, and he's absolutely loving every second of it. And he's just started his little Instagram now. It's called The Great Unpainted One. Warhammer people will get that reference.
Yeah.
It's what I've called him ever since because of his pile of shame. He's bigger than he is if you stack up the boxes. So his plastic cracking, it's well taken its hold on Rob. But yeah, he's converting to Nurgle at the moment, but he's also Space Wolves. So there is two loves.
Two very different factions, I think.
Yes,
but
very much.
both diseased, though, I say.
This is like a nerd talk that's just gone way above my head. I love it though, because I love, the whole world building and stuff like that, but it's a lot. And I'm like, do I dare? Can I watch Graham's podcast that he did on Gaming Up North and understand what's going on? Because I didn't the first time round.
Not if you have the bloody subtitles on. Oh,
AI, damn you!
I will never stop complaining about the generated subtitles. I hate them. Hate them.
Sorry, don't make us laugh again.
Literally every occasion, I will just bring it up, and he's like, "Forget about the subtitles. Stop moaning about the subtitles."
He mentioned the other day, he says, "I've got a load of clips for everyone. If you want to take some," and he went, "Do you have ones without subtitles?"
Silence. I was just like, "Yeah, they all do."
I noticed on a couple of hours. When I was saying the Cannes Film Festival, it was calling it Cannes. And I thought, I'm not that posh. I'm really not that posh.
Oh, the Cannes.
I've never noticed. I really don't notice them. I'm not looking at the words too long. I'm just looking at me going, "Do you look like a state here?" That's my vanity gets in the way of AI.
for other things, like, it would be fine, but with nerddom, because of the amount of made up nonsense that there is in nerddom, like it is a breeding ground for mistakes in generated subtitles, where just like, hey, here's a random fantasy character name. It is not going to get this right,
So where did we leave off? Because we've met the crew.
They've had the discussion, and he's telling them how to
that's
through the 2 points to make them one for it to open again. And
it also has him reveal that the story is that the Event Horizon blew up, whereas he's pointing out, no, it just went missing. Which, and they're like, what? So it went missing and it came back.
Yeah, he's disparate because obviously I can imagine there's been a lot of rumors about the Event Horizon, and the easiest thing, because of circumstances, I reckon someone saw that orgy tape and just went, "Let's just say it blew up,
well,
and we'll forget about it."
Yeah,
I will say, one of my favorite scenes in this, because I find it really comedic, is where he plays the audio to them, like. It is so nonsensical, where literally he just goes like, okay, so the last transmission we got from the ship was this. And he presses the button, and it's like, and he's like, why would we go there? Like, you received a transmission, and they're like, I think they're fine. I think everything's great. He's speaking Latin. Everyone's screaming in the background. This is what could have happened, Like,
get me on there now.
What are the chances that one of their officers can speak fluent Latin?
Yeah, they just go, "Hi, let's commission a mission to the other side of the universe," without just going, "Should we check if anyone speaks Latin in the world before doing this?" And
it had to be the one who could barely speak English in the movie, because I understood his Latin better than I understood him.
But there are a few things in this movie where you're like, I know it happens for the scare, or it happens to keep the plot going.
Yeah.
But it is ludicrous that you're just like going, he's just like, okay, here's a little fun little bit of audio to show you, and he doesn't expect them to shit themselves.
And say, fuck this. I know this is probably bad timing given that we're going to talk about eyes, but I actually have something in my eye.
Oh, God.
And it's really annoying. I'm so sorry. I've been pulling at my eye for ages. Right.
It's what do they call it? Psychosomatic.
Don't.
Yeah, maybe if you're thinking about dodgy stuff with eyes, you probably.
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, I just needed to sort that out and not make a thing of it, and then I ended up doing that. So
after they dock, some of the crew go on board to the Event Horizon from the Lewis and Clark. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit weird with Easter eggs and strange things, because you see things floating around because obviously their anti-gravity's not working, or gravity's not working. There is a watch that comes rolling towards the screen, and it is the Omega Speedmaster, which is the watch that Buzz Aldrin wore when he stepped foot on the moon.
Wow, really?
And Neil Armstrong wore it too.
Yeah, so
That's
I mean
obscure.
that's a weird choice. I get it; it makes sense. Space travel, massive, but like random.
I have to say though, there's all these scenes like that scene there. It feels like, you know, when like they were trying to do 3D and trying to make 3D work.
Yeah, I feel like
it feels
that.
like those, you know, where they just went, oh look, there's something coming up in front of your face, and it had all these movies where they just had these nonsensical scenes thrown in to show off 3D. That's what it feels like with all these objects floating around.
It's the goo. It's the goo. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, Sam, remember this is 97. Just keep reminding yourself it's 97. Because that just, out of everything, out of all this beautiful set work, that is just throwing me right now.
And he turns around and he says, oh, it's full of ice crystals. Yet there's a bottle of water sloshing around going past the camera.
Hold on a minute. Science. Oh god, we're meant to love this movie, man.
Oh, it's just that it's the fact that they paid so much attention to where it matters. It felt like these extra little scenes, they were obviously CGI, but they weren't as policed maybe as the core scenes with the casting. You know, they were like filler scenes, obviously.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it wasn't overused, though.
The person doing the special effects, they just kind of went like, oh, just put some stuff in, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that person wasn't quite as astute as everyone else. You know?
And you know what? That's fine, because the CGI is not overused. Everything seems very practical. And if that's all that we're getting, then I'm totally fine with it. It just kind of threw us when, you know, Justin's like playing around with it, and I'm like, oh mate, no, that doesn't look good at all. And it reminded us something out of a music video, and I couldn't quite like. And now I feel like I know what it is. O-Town. One of their songs. Why do I know this? And they had Liquid Dream. That was what it was called.
I think I had that on CD.
That's the kind of like the stuff that they used is kind of similar to that video. I knew that.
I will say it reminded me a bit of a homage to Cameron, because it felt a bit abyssy, like water bubbly, and like it almost had T2 vibes to it as well. Like
I have to say, in the 90s, they were very much like, look at liquid effects, aren't they amazing? like Star Trek DS9 has like the character of Odo in it, and basically he is like a sort of shapeshifter, and so he turns into a gelatinous kind of thing and then assumes different shapes, and you could tell that they were like, look, CGI liquid effects of the future, and you're sitting there being like, none of this will age well, but you know, everyone was like, but the T1000, you know.
But were we thinking that 97, is this liquid going to age well in like 20 years time? Because probably not. But
I think we're lucky that this film has many physical effects as it does, because it stops it aging too much. But the CG does age it.
It does. But like I say, it's not overused. You are relying heavily on set design for this one to place you in the right places. The walkway that they're on.
Yeah.
Where's that come from again?
Notre Dame.
Thank you.
Is it?
They based it all on Notre Dame and churches.
Yeah. The churches.
So when you go into the Doctor's Bay, there's all these big metal plinths that are like this, and they base that on the altar. And also, when you see Jason Isaacs' demise, the way he's pinned up, they've painted on the windows at the back to make them look stained glass.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks very like cathedral type. They have all Gothic arches in a lot of the themes that they run across, because he said that he wanted to find something that was just so far apart from space travel.
Yeah,
you you still identify with it to a degree because you know it's an earthly thing, but it's not something you see all the time. So it still gives you that element of confusion and unfamiliarity to a degree. So they want you there, but not all the way there.
Not quite.
This is the thing. It's also like the Warhammer influences, because basically the whole thing with Warhammer 40,000 is the Imperium ships. They're all giant churches. So basically they have it where they're all these spaceships, but that are actual cathedrals where they have huge, ludicrous like pulpits and stuff inside the ship and stuff. So it's that weird, super gothic sci-fi kind of coming through. But like, they didn't need to go as hard as they did on set design and the actual aesthetics of this movie, but they did. Like everything, like the iconic front of the ship where it's got that sort of that cross, like, I don't know what you call it. It is a cross, isn't it? It's like a, a plus symbol, basically.
You're just making sure there's no other like reference in there.
But it is
no other like Star Wars or anything.
But it's so iconic though, that like all of the stuff and all the sets and the fact that every part of the ship is slightly different, like the med bay, the ideas aren't the same as they are in the actual, the gateway room, the bridge doesn't look like any of the others and stuff. It's a tour de force for set design, I think.
Especially the tunnel, like the air conditioning duct bit that he's in. When there's that whole sequence where all the motherboards are like.
Well, this is the bizarre thing, because I kind of wonder if that was maybe influenced by the Japanese anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, which came out in 1995, and it is absolutely amazing. It is which is bizarrely also something with very heavy religious overtones, because basically it's all about angels. It's all about sort of sci-fi angels, effectively. It's too complicated to go into, but it has a supercomputer that runs in that, where basically when they do maintenance on it, they have to go into tunnels exactly like this, where they lift up a hatch and then they have tunnels where they have all the circuit boards around them and whatnot. Bizarrely, it's made out of bits of brain, so it's actually sort of like cloned brains inside the tunnels, but with the chip, panels and stuff. So it is bizarre that you're like going, no one has said anything, but it feels very, very similar to that. And that came out 2 years earlier, so you kind of wonder. But
it's one of those things. It's perfectly lit. The color they chose, the green of the board, circuit board. It did something, because it was so jarring compared to the darkness of the film. It was so bright and so neon and so just in your face. And it was like it's kind of a shock to the system to a degree, because you've been accustomed to the dark, like the gothicness of the movie. So it was such a juxtaposition. Your brain just goes, oh, hang on. What's
where am I?
Yeah,
it's the whole the coloring of everything fits the mood, kind of like fits the mood when they're going into, I don't know what the water thing is, but I just kept calling it Status from like Red Dwarf, when they're kind of like going into like the animated I can't say it, the Status, when they're going into Status, that's really bright and light. Nothing's going to happen in there. It's all good. You see it.
Oh, Stasis.
What was I saying?
Status.
What was that?
I think. Okay. I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. No, I probably was. I probably was.
You know when you're not following, but you're nodding, and you're like,
thanks, Graham.
I can't believe you've made that mistake, Sammy. Bloody hell. I mean,
I've made worse. I've made so much worse. But that moment is like, you're okay, it's safe. But then as the movie moves on, the colour starts to change until you get into the end, and then it kind of like, it doesn't quite get back to a bright setting again. It kind of like stays quite stationary, and then the movie ends and it's finished.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bizarre thing. Like, the most bright set towards the end of the film is whatever the exit place is, but it's where Weir hides the bomb on the previous ship, like on the the Lewis and Clark, and
Mhm.
that's a really brightly thing. So it kind of flips it around. It kind of goes like, "Hey, there's danger in this safe place," which obviously ends up blowing the whole ship up. Spoilers.
So once we're on the ship, the hallucinations have started. Now they've already kind of started with Weir. We get but it's not. It's more like a dream when he's on the Lewis and Clark for the first time, until he gets closer to and on the Event Horizon, that they start to change into something quite sinister. His wife's fucking eyes. Right. What? Why is her eyes gone? By the way.
I don't know. I think that's a foreshadowing to him. I think it's
Right.
foreshadowing. I can only place that as foreshadowing because you don't see her do anything to her eyes, because obviously, unless she did in one of the deleted scenes and we don't see it, I've just taken it as foreshadowing for the end scene.
I think it could be imagery for anyone who is coming from hell. So it's with the exception of Weir at the end, all of the characters that we see who are like visions or ghosts or stuff like that all seem to be messed up in that way. The boy is an exception, but basically, like, it suggests that the people who have seen hell, like the people who are actually dead, who are spirits being brought back to torment people kind of thing, but the boy isn't dead, basically seeing hell, seeing the dark, as what's his name, Justin calls it, basically makes you lose your eyes. And that's why when Weir kind of wakes up to it, he loses his eyes. But it is weird that he gets them back at the end. But yeah, I don't know.
I need to find my anxiety thing before we start talking about eyes. Sorry.
I love how you need an anxiety thing to deal with the anxiety of the... Yeah,
I do.
You've got anxiety about finding your anxiety thing to stop the anxiety.
And I need to stop it because it's the eyes. I didn't think I had such a problem with eyes until this movie, and it's the fact that it's all kind of like scooped out. So there's no dark. You can see it all scooped out, and that's what freaked us out more than anything. So yeah, the hallucinations are hallucinating, but we only see Dr. Weir's and I want to say Peter's. We don't see anyone else's. No.
Well, the problem is all of them start getting it. Like Miller has his hallucination of hearing the guy he left behind at some point.
Oh my god, how much did that guy sound like Arnie?
Yeah.
You left me behind.
It's that thing. I mean, I think everyone starts having minor hallucinations, but it's only Peters, Weir, and Miller that have like proper
big ones.
Something going. Doesn't DJ have one?
I
don't know.
No, he doesn't.
No.
Smithy definitely doesn't have one. DJ doesn't mention it. Sorry, one character who we are yet to speak of, who, I'm sorry, if he wasn't in this film, I don't know what I would have done at the end. Cooper.
Yeah.
That guy, when you need to feel relief, he was there. He was your little it's okay blanket, because the minute that he starts talking, I am in stitches, like laughing. And I need a Cooper for this film.
The very first line, if I'm mistaken, is the line where he goes to Jolie Richardson. He's got like a flask of coffee and he goes to her, ever wanted something hot black inside of you or something like that? He goes to hand her the coffee and she just gives him the finger straight away. And I was like, that's who he is.
I think the best thing is that basically she like rebukes him and then he's like, well, how about some coffee then?
I just needed him so badly, and he doesn't seem affected by the ship. Smithy doesn't seem affected by the ship.
Of it though, wasn't he?
And so was Smithy, wasn't he?
Well, I think the whole thing about the Event Horizon is it basically plays upon existing trauma. So all of the people that get affected by it are the people where there's an in. There's an in for, there's a regret, there's a guilt, and it suggests that Cooper and Smithy don't actually have any thing to latch onto, kind of thing, and that's why the ship can't get them, but does in the end, really. But
yeah, they didn't, because Cooper obviously is when the explosion happens and kills Smithy. He's shot off into space.
I needed that moment.
And then he's like, "It's shit." That's all you hear.
Mhm.
It's like, right.
But the
it's
thing
funny
is,
that-
though, with what had just happened, and then all of a sudden you just hear him shooting across the space, going shit. I'm like, oh, thank fuck, I needed that. And then he's like, I'm not going out like this, not like this.
I think this is the thing. It's like I'm the opposite of you. I kind of go like it feels misplaced him having these kind of comedy aspects to it because he is very 90s black man. Like that is the
Yes.
only way to do it. Where they're literally like, we need a comedy character, we need a smart talking black man, and you know, and you're just kind of going like, are we sure this is the film? But I like hearing that it for you it's a palate cleanser,
Yeah.
and it kind of adds to the film because I will admit I do like it. It makes me laugh. I do feel it's a bit misplaced, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I kind of like that he just gets shot off into space, turns it round, comes back again, and then manages to be one of the people surviving.
Yeah.
And do you reckon in the context of the 90s, it was like, look, the black person survived.
Yes.
Like, you know, you kind of wonder about it because I remember Deep Blue Sea. It was like, look,
Yeah.
LL
he survived the
Yeah.
film, and you
He's
just
the
like, and
only
it made a
black
big
guy
deal
that
of
ever
it.
survived LL Cool J. He survived Michael Myers
Yeah.
and he survived the shark.
Yeah.
So LL
He's
Cool J wins.
done well. I don't know if watching it, say from like the other day when I watched it, and say I watched it every week for God, or how if I started watching it more regularly, I don't know if I would still feel the same way about Cooper. But in that moment, for that first time having seen it in a long time, and my stomach's like tensed to fuck, and then he comes out with wee across space. I needed that. I needed to be able to go, oh, for a minute, because like I am so up a height.
But I
He
feel
just
like if you're picking and comparing to the other big space movie that was out there, like Aliens at this time, I think Aliens was nearer. So he is your Hudson character. He's your comedy relief. That's what his purpose is. Doesn't really serve another purpose other than that, because really he doesn't have a role. All that you know that he does do is like rivet the break in the Lewis
it
and
looked
Clark.
fun, mind. Like
But he
as a
didn't-
satisfactory thing, it looked fun.
But I wasn't really sure what his actual. I know they say the roles of everybody at the
Yeah.
beginning, Miller does, but I still do not know what he was there for, like what his actual purpose is.
I think he's basically just the guy to look after everyone, like the bouncer. So he's basically the security. So he is effectively going, hey, if someone needs to be rescued, he's like, I think it describes him as like first aider, doesn't it? Like
Is he
it
not
kind
the
of describes
space
him as.
handyman? Like just,
Yeah, it's a weird
I'll do
one,
whatever.
But yeah, no, I think it's this whole idea of it. It's like, you know, where you'd have like the fireman or some, you know, the fireman or something. He's basically the guy to be like, okay, if someone's trapped in
marshal.
space, he'll go out there, you know.
Like a
He's a
fire
space
marshal.
gopher. Yeah.
Yeah, space handyman. So we've established hallucinations within the crew. Is this where, see, I don't know what happened with my brain for a second, and I think I was anticipating something happening that didn't happen. I think I was mixing two films up. What actually happened to Justin?
He
I
was
feel
down.
like I blacked out for a
room.
second.
He was down in the big room with the core, and he was playing with all the liquid, and then
That's
they put
it.
the gravity on, and everything comes swooshing down.
That's it.
And then somehow he started playing with the black.
Yeah, basically he was in the core room and then the core just activates like out of nowhere. Basically the gateway opens.
Yeah.
You know, they turn on the gravity while he's in there. The core opens, which it shouldn't, like it does of its own accord.
Yeah.
And then he basically notices and he's like, oh, hang on, there's actually a doorway here where it's basically this
That's
weird
right.
wall
Yes,
of
and
liquid.
yes.
So
it's
he
coming back
basically
to us.
gets curious and goes, oh, let's put my finger through there. What the hell is this? Like it's, you know, but then he puts his whole hand in there, gets grabbed and pulled over to the other side.
Yeah.
But he's still tethered. So basically the crew members
That's it.
can tell, oh, something's gone wrong here. So they start pulling him back. And then obviously the rescue guy, Cooper, basically comes for him and whatnot. But it is that idea, but it does suggest that he is pulled into this other dimension, the warp, the hell,
Yeah.
for a prolonged period of time and then ends up in a coma while he processes everything and seems to be possessed, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. I see. I wasn't trying to read while I was watching this, but I did read certain things as the movie was going on, and I tried my best not to. And I feel like it was around this time that I was reading something, and then I was like, "Oh, he's come back," and I kind of like blanked out for a second. I thought everything to do with Justin was a little bit more graphic. In my head, I was like, I'm sure something like really bad, and I'm waiting for it to happen, and it didn't materialize. I'm like, have I just made this up in my head?
What happens to Justin is pretty graphic. Like when he's in the airlock and it's got him like grabbing at his face and all the blood's coming out and stuff, and it's implying that obviously his eyeballs have imploded. Sorry.
It's all right. I've got me stress thing now. It's fine.
But it is kind of horrible what happens to Justin. The thing is, I remember a scene where we can see Justin with a bandage round his head.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and yet I couldn't remember it in this viewing of the film. So I wonder if maybe I blinked and missed it.
I thought you got turned inside out. If in all honesty, for some reason my brain's telling me when he's in that airlock, oh shit, Justin's gonna get turned. This is where he gets turned inside, and it never materialized. And I'm like, have I made this up in my head? Like, have I imagined this?
No, that doesn't happen. He survives the film basically.
But they talk about it, and I'm wondering if it's like they say if that door opens, he's going to turn inside out, and I'm like, have I kind of like put that into my memory lock? But at the same time, I feel the Cube was out. And I watched this and the Cube together, and the Cube is fucking horrible. And I feel like there might be some inside out people in that. So I'm like, am I mixing the two up? So Justin's kind of out of it, and this is where you get to see Peters's proper full on hallucination.
Yeah,
of her child.
Of her child.
Yeah, he's running around, and I'll be like, firstly, where's your wheelchair? Secondly, why are you on the spaceship? Thirdly, I'm so enamored to see you. This is why I thought the kid was dead, because the way she looks at him when he's standing in the doorway and she's not looking down, she's not looking where she's going. It's this like sense of longing that's more than just.
It doesn't make sense. Like
it's more than just I've left you at home with my husband. It felt more.
Well, it's really confusing though, because it's just the whole thing is just a bit weird like that. But that doesn't happen for a lot longer, because we have the hallucination in the med bay first, where she gets to see his like legs rotting.
Oh yes, this is where
that's the bit where there would be maggots and stuff like that. Because that bit happens she is the first person to die at the end. I think she's the first.
She is. She's the
film.
She's the one who starts kind of like a chain reaction of the crew starting to. Dwindle down.
I will say though that the Justin scene in the airlock is probably the most horrific part of the movie for me, because it is done so well. Like how horrendous it is, where he's possessed. They're trying to get him out. He vents the airlock himself, and then he snaps out of it and he becomes himself again, wondering why he's in the airlock, and he's begging them to help him. And the whole scene is as horrible as it could be emotionally.
It is. I think the acting chops of Kathleen Quinlan as Peters in that scene was phenomenal. The fact of how she tried to talk him around, it wasn't just like, I don't know, it didn't feel stiff. It felt like there was some genuine emotion. And when she kept calling him Baby Bear, and I was like, please stop. Please don't do that. And then when he finally comes round and he calls her Mama Bear, I'm like, oh, this needs to stop now. It needs to.
Well, Jack Noseworthy, the guy who played Justin, was the most described. This is how Paul Anderson described him. He's the most affected person, the most Hollywood out of everybody there, because he had the most Hollywood experience out of all the actors on set at that point. All the other actors, Jason, all the others were like theatre actors.
Like
Sam, they'd all come off the back. Even Sam wasn't as experienced as Jack Noseworthy. And I mean,
crazy. Look at Jolie Richardson.
Theatre.
She's Vanessa Redgrave's daughter, for fuck's
Yeah.
sake. Like, her mother would have made her. That would have been her paying her dues.
Jason was theatre, Sean was theatre, because obviously his dad, so he was brought up, Wurzel Gummidge is his dad, so he was brought up in TV and movies, but he went to theatre to sort of step away from the main thing, and then just gravitated slowly. But he, they were all theatre, and Jack was one of the the most experienced out of all of them for acting parts, and that's why Jack's face, Justin's face, because he's been a bit part in nearly everything you've ever watched.
It's true. The only thing I can think of at the top of my head, and any time his name comes up, Idle Hands.
Idle Hands, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just realised that I've got it totally wrong. Where the Doctor Who wasn't called Sean Pertwee; it was John Pertwee.
His dad.
But I didn't know that. I thought that Doctor Who was called Sean Pertwee, and that's why I was confused. I was like, hang on, is his son called? Is he like Sean Pertwee the second or something? But no, it's just me just not knowing things.
Well, I can top that, because I didn't even know his dad was John Pertwee until right this moment.
Yeah, John Pertwee. I actually talked to Sean once about his dad, because I saw his dad in a play when I was young. My nan, I think I might have mentioned this before, my nan and granddad had this thing. They liked to take us to go to places and do things. And we went to see
What bastards.
I know. We went to see A Christmas Carol in Oxford, and I didn't appreciate it for what it was at the time because of the actors that were in it. And we had John Pertwee, Stratford Johns, and Anthony Newley doing a massive production of A Christmas Carol in Oxford. And there's me going, I don't know, why is there no Muppets? Why are they not singing?
Where's the strings?
And then you get to the point where you're 40 and you look back and you go, I saw that with my actual eyes. Anthony bloody Newley, Stratford Johns, John Pertwee. And I was telling to Sean, I said, I saw your dad in a production years and years ago. I said, and I think it was one of his last. And he said, yeah, that was his last show. That was the last one he did before he passed away. And I was like, oh God, now I feel really bad. I'm sorry if I made you maudlin. He was like, no. He's very camp if you meet Sean in real life. I'm still not entirely sure what's going on there. But he's Ronsealed to the gods. The guy loves a good old bit of Ronseal. I'm not sure if it's sprayed on or sun induced, but he's the same colour as the fence. So
he looks very well put together. I saw him at the for the Love of Horror panel talk, and he looks very put together. And I know exactly what you mean the way he talks. Where are we in the film? So Justin's having his moment.
This is where they started going, we're fucked. Like there is something seriously wrong here. Isn't this where they actually translate the where Peter's
he gets
the video as well and just goes, oh, this looks fun.
Yeah. So they see the last transmission, don't they, of them all having a good time, and then the wavy that transmission of the screen comes up, and it's like kind of you can't really make out what's going on. But I think DJ has worked out what he thinks it says.
Yeah.
But obviously later on we found out that it's got more to it, or it's a different.
What annoys me is this is like film trickery, because the first time you hear the recording, he at the beginning of the film, he goes, "Oh, that says this," and it blatantly does.
Yeah.
And then when you hear it again, it has more to it, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't hear that the first time." I'm like, no, that's a different recording, and then has an extra bit at the end, and you're like, why didn't it play that? It's once again crazy film stuff where it needs to happen for the purpose of the film. But I love the idea of someone being like this thing in random reference in the video game Silent Hill 2. It's basically got it where the main character James gets a letter from his dead wife, and the game starts with him reading this letter, and then at the end of the game, it has it continuing, where basically the letter continues and explains the whole plot of the game. And you're like, are you telling me he didn't actually turn the page up? And that's how the entire plot has happened, and it's just like that. It's just like,
That is kind of the same thing, really. He didn't listen to it all the way through.
Yeah.
We might have avoided some things.
Yeah, and it is very much one of those things, but it's dramatic effect, you know.
When is the moment? Because I love this moment so much. But when is it when Lawrence Fishburne hears something and goes, "Right, we're getting the fuck out of here, and we're blowing this fucker up," and it's like, "Come on, let's go." Is that roundabout now where they're like they're starting to pay, or is it when they see the orgy tape?
I don't know, because the problem is there's a scene where they're all lying to each other because Dr. Weir has had a hallucination about his wife. He knows that something weird is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miller has his hallucination where he basically remembers the guy that he left behind to die. And, then swears that he'd never leave anyone else behind. And so everyone's had their hallucinations, and Weir goes, and like just doesn't speak up about like, I've had hallucinations as well. And that's when they decide, hey, there's something really weird going on here. And I think that's when they focus on decoding the rest of the tape.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But it's
when they finally do, I think it's the orgy bit where he just goes, "We're leaving." It's literally, we're going. I'm not having this. And I thought, oh my God, smart decision making. Let's do this. Let's get off this ship.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's the thing, though. That's where Miller goes, okay, we're leaving the ship, and I'm going to blow it up. Like, I'm actually going to destroy this ship because, like, it is fucked. And we get the wonderful bit where Dr. Weir's basically going, no, you can't destroy my ship, like,
no.
And then, and that's where the flip happens. That's where, he stops being the everyman and he becomes the villain. And he has that wonderful scene where he's like, hey, what is it? Dr. Weir, if you don't come with us, you're going to be walking home. And then he goes, but I am home. And he
kind of like sinks back into the dark. Yes.
It's so perfect. That is the villain transformation for me, I think.
Yeah. I love that scene. And this is where everything starts to go tits up. Now, I'm going to get this out the way with now, because I've had it playing on my mind for a few days now. I want to write a strongly worded letter to Hollywood. Because I am sick. I want dear Mr. Hollywood, can you please stop killing Sean Pertwee in every film I have had to review for Monsters Up North, because I am sick to shit of getting attached to him as a character, and a fucker goes and dies.
Poor Smithy. Poor Smithy.
Dan, I was furious. I was livid. I thought to myself, this will be the third film in a row where the fucker dies, and I was like, I'm not having it. Hollywood needs to be told, leave him alone.
He's like, it's like Sean Bean. It's this idea of going, oh, you expected Sean Pertwee to get to the end of the film. Oh, well, that's your fault.
Yeah, and I can't have another actor in my life having that same thing. Like, Sean Bean is one of them. Always going to be waiting for that moment of, well, when's Sean going to die? When's it happening?
The irony being that the film he survives is Silent Hill, and you're like, what?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he survives in Silent Hill 1.
I've
never seen Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the dad.
To be fair, I think the reason he doesn't die is because he was added in later. Like
so that's the contractual thing then. If Sean Bean arrives later,
if they wrote the film knowing Sean Bean would be in it, he would have died. Basically, I feel confident, but because he exists in the film, but then the script kind of forgets him and just goes, "Hey, let's never talk about the dad again." And then they basically, when they made the film, there was like, there's no men in this whole film. So they basically reshot scenes with Sean Bean and gave him a bigger character.
Let's get this Sheffield guy in.
Do it for you.
I will say I'm a fan of Sean Bean, but in the Silent Hill movie, he is terrible because he forgets his accent. So when they have him at the beginning of the film, he basically has an American accent for his official scenes, and then when they reshot stuff and wrote the new stuff, no one reminded him, oh, by the way, you were doing an American before, so he just is Sean Bean, and it's very noticeable in the film that he just stops his accent between scenes.
We watched him in an English TV program where he was a drag racer throughout a dystopian London, and we were waiting all season for him to die. He gets to, and we were kind of, and every episode we got through where Sean Bean survived, I mean, we were high-fiving each other like, yeah. And then I think it was the last episode that left you on a, you don't know if he did or not. And then we never watched season 2, so I don't know if he did or not. But God bless you, Sean Bean. I want to get into Sam Neill's transformation into what we end up with. I can't really bring myself to say it because it's. Do you know what I thought at one point? When I saw the makeup was fantastic, by the way. That was some fucking brilliant detailed makeup. But I did get Pinhead vibes at the minute he came on. I was like, oh, I like this. Where's the black leather? Where's the chains?
Well, the bizarre thing is we have two monster versions of Sam Neill in this. Because we have we have Sam Neill where he is still alive, but he's lost his eyes.
Yeah.
And he's like a possessed version of like himself. Yeah. And I prefer that one. Like, I think the scene where he's in the captain's chair and he just kind of, the captain's chair turns around and they can see that he's got no eyes. And he's basically sort of going, hey, I'm opening the drive. We're all going to be fucked. I think that is one of the most iconic scenes in the film.
Is that where he's about to get sucked out of the front? Yeah.
And it's that whole. I love that. I think I find him more monstrous there than I do at the end, where he is this kind of Cenobite thing. But the thing is, basically, he does get sucked out into space. He does die, and then it means that at the end, hell brings him back as this kind of avatar, I guess, where he becomes the Pinhead type Cenobite type character. Although it is weird that he gets his eyes back, and you're like,
it's the fact that when he loses his eyes, they use skin to cover them. To stretch it up, and that's what made me have a bit of a ick moment. Was that I did pause it for a second just to see how his face was constructed. Because I was like, well, he's talking perfectly fine, but like this bit's all pulled up. And I was like, where is this like extra skin come from? And then it's like, oh, they've kind of like cut his cheek. And it's like there's a gap in his, and it's pulled up. And I'm like, oh, the detail in that is unreal.
Horrible, but I love it.
It's 7 to 8 hours in a makeup chair.
Wow.
Yeah. His call was 1 a.m. in the morning for about a 9, 10 a.m. call. And then he'd still have 3 hours of having it all taken off in the evening as well. So, the guy
considering it's only in for 2 scenes, I think it's
but it's some impressive makeup.
The one that for me that wins out the most is the Jason Isaac death, the DJ's death, because that to me is it sort of gets to the point where you go, right, I know where this film is. I know what this film's about now.
Totally understand that.
This film, they didn't just... You didn't know what his thing was, really, if I remember rightly. You didn't know what his insecurity or his issue
his
was.
trauma.
With the others you knew, but with him not so much. You just knew he was broody. But for him to get gutted, flayed,
vivisected, basically.
Yeah, and he was. It was. We're all talking hooks and wires, and his entire insides were on the tray and on the floor beneath him. But there's an image like that I alluded to before, where you've got the Gothic windows. They've painted something in blood on the back of the windows to make it look stained glass. Then you've got all the columns coming down, and it's just a perfect shot right in the middle. And he looks like an angel with wings.
Yeah.
And it was made to look like that. And there's something about it. This is going to sound really insane, but it is visually stunning as a shot, because it makes you go, why does that work? I should be horrified, but somehow I'm not quite horrified.
I wasn't actually freaked out by this moment at all. It gave me total Silence of the Lambs. As soon as it came on, I was like, oh, but you are right. I knew where I was the minute that scene happened, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going down this route. But as much as I was getting Silence of the Lambs, obviously the scenery, the draping of the angel, all they needed was a bloody a big bars to hang them off, and it would have been exactly the same. But it was the fact that the chest opened out and everything coming down, and then the chains, and again screaming Cenobite, and but not directly saying this is. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's not. It doesn't feel like a rip off. It just feels like inspired by.
For me, it felt like you could tell it had been done by a doctor, someone with some sort of medical experience in some way.
Yes.
And for it to be able to have been suspended from the ceiling like that and done in very minimal time leads me to believe it's something rather supernatural rather than just some guys going on a rampage, if you know what I mean.
I class it as more film bullshit because it looks cool, but it's this idea of going. So Sam Neill is just going around killing people on the ship, but he's going to do this massively intricate kind of death for this guy. Like, if the film suggested stuff, like if the film had more exposition in it, such as people need to suffer, the drive works better, the gateway works better if there's suffering in proximity to it.
Yeah.
Then that would make sense. So it kind of goes like, look, Dr. Weir, in order to serve the ship, has to make people suffer as much as possible. That would add more to it. So it feels like that maybe existed in the script at some point, but got cut out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But effectively what we get is, this is cool horror movie bullshit. But, you know, it's like, as in, how did no one walk in on this? If that must have taken like half an hour or something to do, you know?
And it's the same thing, but it's the same thing with how did he plant the bomb with no eyes?
Yeah, like the whole thing of how does he move around without eyes and stuff. Like, but
at that point, you didn't see him; you only saw him from behind when he's going down in the on the plinth thing, and that's when Smithy turns around and says, "I've just seen Weir in here," and he's like, the explosive is missing from the hallway. Where is it? And it's the look on Sean's face, Smithy's face, when he opens the flap and he sees 6, 5, and he just automatically...
He just closes his eyes.
He closes his eyes and accepts his fate straight away. There's no screaming, no yelling. It's like he just holds his breath and waits for it. And I thought...
It's beautiful acting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To me, that feels more plausible than someone screaming and shouting in their last moments. Just going, well, there's fuck all I can do about this.
Yeah, but it's like peace. It's just total peace.
It's this perfect, you know, expression of just going, you know, like of... I don't know, sort of, he's not happy about it. He's really sort of like upset, but he knows there's nothing he can do. It's kind of acquiescence to the situation. It's
even if you try to run, even if you try, it is, and it's. I don't know. You can't. I'm devastated it happened, but again, I'm still going when it's done because it's like because he accepts it, you accept it.
Yeah.
What's her name? Peter's death. I'm sorry, she deserved it.
She's an idiot.
She deserved 100%. It.
But I really liked the way that when she fell, when you see these movies where people fall from great heights, you think to yourself, oh, here we go, either superhero landing or you're going to get up and dust themselves off and off they go. No, you see her hit the sides as she comes down, but when she lands, you see her legs break.
It's it was her chest for me. When her chest hit, our chest kind of went up because that's how the impact would have on our back. It would bring it up, and I was like, "Oh, they did it really!
They really did a good job on that, I think." And it because I don't know why I automatically look at the legs every time, and it feels like their shins are just smashing and coming out of her knees. I don't know what it is. Like you can't technically see that. But it looks like there's so much damage going on, and I appreciate the fact that they've put effort into how that would really look.
Yeah,
I mean, it might not be bang on. I'm sure there'd be much more blood and much more carnage. But
I just feel that the way she landed on her back was just perfect because she didn't just land and go boom.
Yeah,
done. There was a body reacted to the floor. Yeah.
The fact that the water, or is it blood? The fact that the liquid is there really helps it just go, wow, this is brutal. Like this, it's such a visceral moment where she hits, you know, and you just go, she is dead. Like,
oh yeah, there's no coming back. I mean, I'm sure the ship might try, but she ain't coming back as
Well,
the person we knew.
But the interesting thing is Weir's reaction to finding her, because obviously Weir's had his creepy "I'm evil" moment,
Yeah.
but then basically actually responds to her and is like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, I can't believe you're dead," like,
Yeah.
and it shows that he hasn't been like taken over properly at this point. And it's quite, and it's quite cool that it's this idea of the ship has him in its clutches, but it hasn't got him entirely yet,
There's still a slight bit of humanity in him. Doesn't he say like you were the best of them or something like that? Like he makes like a personal reference to her. And I feel like it's because she's the only one who didn't shout at him. So
Yeah.
and
He's
he
the only one
obviously
that's really nice to him, I guess.
and he remembered that. So yeah, his humanity is still kind of in place. It's not fully gone yet.
But then he sees the life leave her eyes, and that's when he starts ripping out his own eyes. So it's that moment, isn't it? She's laying there, and he turns around and he's like, "Oh!" He starts clawing out his own eyes.
I wish he didn't.
But then in that deleted scene from the orgy, the guy who's the captain rips out everybody's eyes as well in that deleted scene, because there is a section of that's been cleared up that is around. And it's much better to watch, and you see this bit where he's standing there, the captain, he's got two eyeballs in his hand, and he's like,
that's in the film as I've seen it.
Yeah, but this version is a bit cleaner. It's not like like they do it as found footage and it's all like grainy. But this someone's done something and it looks easier to see, and I'd never noticed it before. And it's almost like he's offering, like in a religious way, the eyeballs, like, "Come, my children, give me your eyes." It's weird, but it looked like a sermon, and it was an orgy, but it looked like he was trying to give.
I mean, we are
stretching the words. When you're in hell, you don't need eyes to see.
Yeah.
So it's that idea of basically going, look, you don't need these anymore, and it seems to be
though? Why do they need to take the eyes?
Because all you need to do is suffer. You don't need to I think. We could probably say that the eyes are representative of the accumulation of knowledge, because we read with our eyes, we observe with our eyes and stuff. The idea that you don't need them anymore because all that you have in the future is suffering and torment, potentially. That is possibly imagery there. I don't know.
Windows to your soul, aren't they? They say the eyes are the windows to your soul. So it's a way of...
Well, I'm going to call bullshit on that. When you start wearing varifocals, you'll understand it's absolute bullshit. Oh, so we've got the deaths have happened. Is this where... You wouldn't think I only watched this the other night. Miller has his profound moment of, we need to blow this up.
Yeah.
We need to get basically, I don't know if at this point has he already figured in his head he's sacrificing himself.
Well, him and Weir have just had that tete-a-tete where we're sucked out of the front of the ship, and he manages to escape, and then he goes downstairs, and then he discovers Peters, and then Weir just turns up out of nowhere and said, "Oh, they brought me back! Surprise! I have eyes." And looks down at it. And then he has that moment where he's like, "I'm going to blow this place up." But he gave, if I'm right, he gave Cooper, and he gave, I keep forgetting, Jolie Rich.
It's Stack, S-T-A-C-K. Let's just call her Jolie.
I've got it just written as Stark, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, he just told them to get to where they need to go get the hell out.
The whole thing is that he basically went, "Hey, we can't stop the actual gateway opening. We are set a timer on it, so we're going to blow the corridor and then escape away from the thing."
That's it. We're going to do his original plan, so it's already actually been put in the movie at the beginning of how. So either how they could get away,
the bombs are here in case there is a problem with the drive, and this is what's so fascinating, because it just goes, well, if they weren't detonated, then there was obviously not a standard problem with the drive, like obviously Weir probably sees, but so the plan is obviously Miller is planning to escape, but in the end he kind of just goes, okay, well, I'll just blow the corridor using the detonator without getting to the escape. Well, the front of the ship, basically. I forgot what it's called.
The bridge bit.
The bridge.
Why can I never remember that?
Yeah, so and then something happens, and Weir is like going over Miller, and Miller finally grabs his detonator and he just goes for it, doesn't he?
Mhm.
And then they get sucked into the dimension. That's the thing. There's the explosion, and then he gets sucked into the dimension, and the others just move away, don't they? So
Are you okay, Graham?
Yeah, sorry. I was
You're
just blowing my
right.
nose.
Oh, bless your heart, man. Yes, they get sucked up. I was going to say get sucked. Oh no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I have to remember who watches this.
yes,
What I can't remember what happens at the end. Directly at the end.
they get sucked in. He gets sucked into the hell dimension, Miller, as he's exploded the bridge. They disappear, Weir and Miller, into the thing as Jolie, Richardson, and Cooper are watching out the window.
Yes.
They then it quickly switches to stasis, where there's the three of them. Jolie
That's it. Yes.
Cooper's already out, and I think Justin's in there, but you never see him again. You just see
but the medical crew say he's here. You don't see him, but it's like he's here. We don't know how he's alive, but he is here. So well done, Justin, for making it through.
And then the guy that's talking to her flips up his helmet, and it's Weir masquerading as a soldier or a rescuer. But then Cooper doesn't see it, but she does.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if it's a hallucination.
Well, yeah, that was a question I was going to ask when I finally remembered what the end scene was. Is it a hallucination or is it just trauma?
I think
know.
I think it's basically the film being like, we need more jump scares.
Yeah.
I think, you know what though? I find the most frightening thing, okay, that isn't a major thing for people is this suggests that you dream while you're in stasis. I'm doing saying
I'm
stasis.
sorry.
While you're in stasis. And isn't that really scary? That if you're actually in stasis for years, or in this case, like 52 days, it makes me think of the Red Dwarf episode, like, what is it? Back to Reality, I think it is. Where it's basically where it's a trick where they've all been in virtual reality for like years and stuff, and they wake up in the real world. Can you imagine being in a dream for like 52 days and then being woken up out of it and being like, what's this? So the idea that you can be having nightmares while you're in stasis is kind of scary for me, I think.
That's not pleasant. No, thank you.
No, I'm good. I'd rather just like do a whole anesthetic thing, like out, awake. That's it. Nothing in between. Because she does not freak out at the end. And that is the end of the movie. I love this. It's probably like a millionth time watch, but a very long time after the last time. I don't know what made us just stop watching it. I don't know what makes us stop watching, these films that I go around in circles with and I have like a 6-month relationship with. Why do I just instantly stop watching them? I don't know how it happens, but I did with Event Horizon, and it was a very long time before watching it. And when I did the other night, I'm really glad. Now, normally I write notes down as the movie's going on to prompt us and remind us, and I didn't do it on this occasion because I was really, really fucking enjoying it, and I wanted to make sure that I was like actually paying attention and looking at the details of the set and looking at the makeup of it. And that's hence the reason why I've struggled a bit tonight to remember where things are, because normally I have prompters to say, this happened, this happened, this happened. I'll not do that for next week.
I'm just really glad they didn't keep the original name for the film. I'm glad the original name was called The Stars, My Destination.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a horrible, horrible, clunky name. Doesn't work at all. I think it was Philip Eisner that called it that in the original.
It's like the hidden name, isn't it? It's like the pen name.
Horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. And they chose Event Horizon due to what an Event Horizon is, which is a complete. I've got it written down. The official. I did write the official term for it down. It is.
Which plays into the idea of the way that they fold space, basically.
Yeah, it's a notional boundary around a black hole beyond which no light or other radiation can escape, or a point of no return. So it makes more sense just in the whole concept of the movie to call it this. The Stars, My Destination sounds like a really shit Disney fucking kids movie where they're all going
really
up
does.
the
It sounds
bridge
like
of
a
Terabithia.
whimsical sci-fi, and that is not what this is at all.
Oh no, this would be like a total. You'd be in for a shock if
Well, this
you
is
thought
what
you were getting
Paramount-
whimsical.
Yeah, this is what the Paramount Studios thought they were getting, a darker version of Star Trek. They didn't know that this is what they were planning.
Yeah,
So they were all very, very
Shocked?
dubious about sending it out because obviously the issues they had with this film was that Titanic was due to go out in July.
Oh, that's right.
They had to extend the shooting for Titanic because James Cameron being James Cameron. They had to move it to December instead. So they needed something to fill the summer blockbuster hit space. So they made Paul Anderson do this, get this edited and get it done in like 10 months. This is from shooting to going out into the cinemas. And he feels like it was very, very rushed. And he said there's like the editing was the downfall. That editing was his downfall, but he still loves the movie as it was. But the reason why they consider it a flop is because it made a 12 million loss in the box office. I mean, it had a 60 million budget and it made 42 million in the box office. But again, I think it's an incredibly cerebral horror sci-fi thing. It really makes you think. And if you look at 1997 and the movies that were out around then, it wasn't a very cerebral time. Men in Black, all those sort of, when you sit down to watch a sci-fi movie then, it was very tongue-in-cheek, it was very comedy, it was very that. And so this was such a huge
different direction.
Yeah, just it was so different to all the others. I think people didn't know what they were walking into. And with the edit being the way it was as well, I think it confused a lot of people. And they didn't really have much to go off on. There was no, with it being a brand new thing, they didn't have like a law or there was no aliens. Because that's the thing, forget about this. There's no aliens. It's a haunted house on a in space. As exactly. They like to coin it, of the haunted house in space movie. So there's that. But there's no aliens, there's no nothing. So they didn't want that, which I thought was a great choice. But they feel like if they were to reshoot it today, he said two things would happen. One, it would be so heavily CGI'd, it'd probably be its demise. He said, but the other thing would be, I would have more creative direction and be able to put in a lot more of the things I wanted to, because today we can accept these things. Whereas in 1997, the audience weren't ready to accept and see the things that I wanted to put in. Now they would be, because we're so desensitized. So he said, I feel like to a degree my movie would be fantastic if I could take the exact movie and do it the way I wanted to originally, with all the practical effects and as is.
Yeah.
But when the studio get their hands on it, they're going to CGI it up to the max and make it this other thing that I don't want it to be. So he said, I'm happy with what I made. I just wish I could have had my full cut. So
But the fact is, what we got was an amazing movie. But I think what you're right though. Like, it's, you know, me and my brother at Christmas, we watched one of our favorite like Christmas films. Well, there's ice in it. You know, The Thing. But obviously, we watched the prequel they made of that, where they ballsed it all up with the CGI, and it looks fucking awful. Like, it looks about Event Horizon level, and that was like 30 years ago. You know. And it's terrifying just how badly Hollywood messed that movie up.
It's awful. That was my first look at The Thing. Was
really?
The prequel. Yeah. I hadn't watched it before. Obviously, I knew about it. I'm not completely inept when it comes to movies. I just don't watch it. I just didn't watch a lot. Now I feel like I'm catching up. I feel like I'm making a dent. But the first one was the prequel. I have no more on Event Horizon.
The only thing I want to mention, that's obviously I touched on it earlier, the influences. Like, it's the idea of this film is so well regarded. We talk about it made a loss when it came out, but the same as The Thing, the same as other things, it is rooted in a lot of great stuff, because we wouldn't have the Dead Space series of games if we hadn't had this movie. Doom 3, which is my favorite of the Doom ones, it's where they went, hey, should we actually put a plot into this series? Like, should we actually put
Why
a plot
not?
into this game? You know, like rather than just the book being like, you are a soldier on Mars, go wild. More than that, but and Doom 3 is a wonderful survival horror game. Like it's a first person shooter, but it is a survival horror in a weird way. And it has all these wonderful tapes, and all of it is just straight from this. Like, and then we have System Shock 2, which is basically one of the greatest horror games of all time. I will fight anyone who disagrees with me on that. And that is just, yeah, that came out about 2 years after this, I think. And you can see the influences dramatically, like from the idea of there being two ships stuck together and one of them having to move from one ship to the other one. Like, there's you know, what is it, trying to think of other ones. Starfield, a game that really recently came out. The designers basically went, yep, we were massively influenced by Event Horizon. So it's kind of crazy that these are the games that people are building other things influenced by now, and they're all from this random movie that was basically like, hey, what if we combine like Alien with Hellraiser with like, you know, this, that, and the other.
The Exorcist, believe it or not, is another influence of this film.
And it's brilliant. And it's
crazy.
This idea of that's what I love about Hollywood. We talk about, you know, Hollywood being sort of, what do you call it? Like, what's the word for things when it just entropy, like, you know, and
there's no way I was getting that word.
We talked about like Hollywood being like entropic, the fact of it just goes, hey, let's just keep rehashing the same shit and wondering why it's not working anymore. Like, you know, hey, let's just keep bashing out superhero movies. No one's coming to see them. Oh, well, it can't be because they're tired of the concept, or they're not being done as well. And this is like a perfect example of just going, look, beautiful things can grow when you have strange, you know, when you allow people to be creative. And this is a labor of love, from the set design, from the makeup, from the plot being from Warhammer and all of these other influences. And it's wonderful. And I'm so glad that Paul W.S. Anderson has a good film under his belt. We can hope one day Rob Zombie will say the same.
Well, I feel that is a lovely way.
I saw the monsters.
I can't talk because I like it.
I can't watch it. He's at HorrorCon this weekend, and if I'm introduced to Jeff Daniel Phillips, I am not going to know what to say to him because I'm Herman all the way. I am.
You've seen Lords of Salem, right?
I have, but I don't. Yeah, I know, but I don't. He's Herman Munster in the new one, and I just can't do it.
I think
just flash Edge on your arm and just be like, look.
Lords of Salem was weird for me because I was like, this is the best film Rob Zombie has ever done. Like the beginning of that film where we get to see Sherry Moon and her acting chops, and you're like, she's really good. And then it just flips to utter bollocks, and you're just going.
I still really like it, and I can get past the flip. But I totally get what you mean. The beginning part of that movie is
good.
It's so good. You don't want to leave. Like you just like, I want to go and live. I want that life. I want to live there, and I want that life. And then fucking Patricia Quinn and the rest of them all come in, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's such a great cast. That's for another. That's a whole other podcast. So next week.
Mm-hmm.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
They are.
That's right.
Do. Yeah.
They tend to with me.
I'm sensing it's not Cujo.
I don't think that's a movie I'm going to be able to do for a very long time. No, but we are heading into Stephen King territory, which I'm so looking forward to. Every Stephen King episode we've done has always been great. We are doing Carrie. Or Carrie, however way you want to say it. It is late on a Thursday night, and I'm been to work for 10 hours. I'm tired. So it's Carrie. Yeah, next week we're going down the Stephen King route with Carrie. That is, we're talking book, we're talking 2 movies, but nothing after that because I don't think I've ever seen Carrie's Rage.
No, I'm gonna do the original Carrie and then the Chloe Grace Smith.
Yes. So next week is Carrie. Well, That's another episode done.
Mhm.
Oh, where are we? So we are on YouTube every Monday at our new time of 8 o'clock. Audio for this episode and all of our other episodes are available from anywhere you get your podcast from. Graham, all your details will be down below, along with
Well,
Bleeding Marvelous.
we've got Trekking Up North, obviously. If you care about Trek, do that. But join in because me and Good will have a lot of fun. I do want to mention, though, that I am a big thing happening for me this year is that I'm one of the finalists in Mixed Drag Great Britain. We just had the media day the previous weekend, which was, as I was telling you before we started recording, was hell. It was wonderful hell, but it was just, wow, a lot of work. So I could potentially win like this crazy crown
You
that
fucking
allows me
could.
to speak in Parliament, like actually
That's
speak
cool.
in Parliament about the things that matter to the LGBT plus community and whatnot. And that is a big deal for me. And so it's quite exciting. So over the next couple of months, I'm going to be doing lots of fundraisers and stuff like that. But if you want to support me, please go to thevelvetsnatch.com/donate. And we're going to be evolving this page as things go on because I have merch coming, I have events coming up, I have things, but there's a Just Giving page if you want to sort of chuck a tenner or something into there. That would massively help me. But yes, anyway, that's my spiel.
I was going to get to it.
No, I jumped the gun. I've got to be careful. It's like with a Sunday podcast. You're like, no, I'm going to do this. I have to get in because otherwise...
And I was going to get to it. I was going to put it in the intro, and then I was like, I can't get. I might not be able to get the words out. There's a lot. And I want to make sure that I do it justice. So I was just going to ask you at the end. But yes, all details down for Graham are down below, along with Bleeding Marvelous, Nerdy Up North, and Monsters Up North. Dan will have already have done HorrorCon UK because time travel and. Yes, I hope you had a wonderful time and everything went great. Yay. Well, if there's nothing else to say goodbye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye. Bye.